What's going on, guys? My name is Richard and welcome back to another stock market outlook video. And today we're going to be switching up the format a little bit. We'll go through the usual analysis of the indexes, but then we'll also talk about how the potential true market leaders are performing, whether extended at this time, pulling back to moving averages. I think this gives an excellent view of kind of how growth stock investing is going. So I think this will be a very good addition. And then, of course, we'll go through our usual analysis of how my previous watch list did, and then we'll consult the IBD big picture and also the GMI signal. But first, going to the indexes and talking about the NASDAQ, you can see that on Monday, we had a very strong recovery, a gap down, but then a strong close above the moving averages. And you also see a pickup in volume as well. So this marked the start of a recovery from this pullback. And from then on, the week was very strong. We had another gap up on Tuesday, a fade, but then a strong recovery towards the end of the day. And then on Wednesday and Thursday, you had a little bit of consolidation in those stocks, very tight range, which is constructive. And then on Friday, we had more of a volatile day, but that was because a lot of options were expiring. There was some rebalancing. So don't take this volume too negatively. And overall, we still were barely down on the day. And just taking a look at the weekly chart tells you really everything you need to know about this week. It was very strong, a nice recovery from the pullback. Overall, we were up 3.57% with the close right near the high of the range. And you have the first close over the key 10,000 mark. So a very strong performance from the NASDAQ. Now taking a look at the S&P 500 and getting a sense of more of the overall market, it was a little bit weaker, but overall still a very strong week. On Monday, we had that same strong showing, although it didn't close above the 13 EMA. And then towards the end of the week, we did have some consolidation. So once again, the NASDAQ is leading as it has been throughout this entire rally. But overall, still constructive action. And I would like to see the SPX move up next week and continue on with recovering from this pullback and maybe fill this gap a little bit. But overall, once again, even though this was a pretty bad day, from the volume standpoint, this is exaggerated because of all that rebalancing. Now taking a look at the small caps, the Russell 2000, you can see that it's more similar to the SPX, and we had a nice recovery on Monday, but overall, not much difference throughout the rest of the week. And quickly, I didn't cover the weekly change on the SPX, so here we go. Overall, it was up 1.86%. That's solid, although it still has some work to do to take out the previous highs and eventually make its way to all-time highs. And on the IWM, you can see it also has some work to do. And overall, it was up 1.97%, although I would like to see it retake these longer-term moving averages. And if we go to a daily, you can see it's still below a declining 200-day moving average, which shows weakness. And I want to see the Russell be involved in this rally and support the overall move. So that's my thoughts on those three major indexes. And taking a look at GLD gold, you can see that it had a pretty decent week, especially a nice Friday. And overall, it had a recovery on Monday, similar to the overall market, but it's still in this very tight range and could break one way or the other. And this would be a big break because if we go to a monthly chart, you can see that it's in this huge kind of consolidation and it's very tight these past 2 months. And now going over to the VIX, and let's go to a daily chart. You can see that it was dropping throughout this week, which is a good sign, although we did see some pop on this past Friday with some more volatility because of all that rebalancing. But overall, we're around 35, which is still high, but much better than what we were experiencing on last Thursday. And I'll take a look at the financials, the XLF. They tried to recover as well, but kind of just faded. And I would like to see them move up towards this 200-day moving average and definitively close above it. And lastly, let's take a look at the FFTY, the Innovator IBD 50 ETF, and it gives you a sense of how growth stocks really performed last week. And overall, basically every growth stock did very, very well. On Monday, we had a nice reclaim of the 200-day moving average, and that carried on throughout the rest of the week, up a further 1.63% on Tuesday, consolidating Wednesday and Thursday, and then a nice showing on last Friday. So overall, growth stocks did pretty well last week, and this is reflected nicely in these true market leaders. This is where it really counts to have a position in these leading stocks because when the overall market pulls back, they pull back less, and when it finally recovers, these really take off. And you can see that a lot of them were over 10% on the week, with Fastly having a gain of 35%. That's very, very strong. LVGO as well had a nice showing. Chegg, a nice showing. And overall, a lot of these are extended at this point. And how I judge that is based on the 10-4 stochastic. And you can see a lot of them, if we sort by that, are above 80. And this means they've been drifting higher. They're kind of extended from a base. And there's no real good pullback entries coming too soon. So this could be a weakness, although things can stay trending up for quite a while. As we take a look at DocuSign, it's been just riding those moving averages higher. But this could mean we're due for a consolidation in these leaders. Let everybody else catch up before we're ready for a definitive move higher. But of these potential TMLs, you do see some pulling back to the 50-day moving average. iFi, NVIDIA also is not too extended this time, but overall they are a bit extended. So just keep that in mind. And taking a look at how my watch list performed, let's sort it by weekly change. And overall, my universe list did very, very well last week. You only had 2 losers, down about 1% each. And overall, we had a ton of stocks over 10%. Fastly as well was the top performer, but SITM did very well. SDGR, NET broke out, ONEM broke out. And just taking a look at my watch list, you had 8 out of 17 which had gains over 10%. So that's very strong. This is probably one of the better watch lists that I put out there. And I think this is mostly due to the strength of the recovery from this pullback that we just saw. But it does go to show that if you do pick strong fundamental companies with great setups, you can make gains very, very quickly and compound your money. And overall, NET had the strongest performance, and you had a breakout on Monday, which I bought, and then that continued on towards the rest of the week, although we did have a drop on volume on this past Friday. ONEM also had a very strong showing with a bounce off the prior green line, and let's show that support level. And you can see it followed through on Friday with very strong volume, up 10.17%. So it could be buyable if it breaks through this high of 36. You might want to watch that because this does have quite a lot of momentum, and hopefully you would see it then make its way towards all-time highs. XP also had a green line breakout, although there wasn't really volume coming in, so that's why I didn't take this one. But look for some consolidation here, and then it would be constructive if it then moves higher from that point. LVGO also moved up nicely from the short-term stochastic cross, and it's just riding those moving averages higher. I'm in this one, and I'm looking to ride this for another big move like it had during the start of this recovery. Chegg also had a very strong showing on Friday. I really didn't expect it to try to break out. I bought it off the bounce off this prior support level here and on the green dot and Bollinger Band bounce entry. And you can see that on this day, it also had a strong closing with the close right above these moving averages and near the top of the range. Taking a look at the worst performer, we have ENPH, which had a very interesting Wednesday because I think there was some news out, some accusations of fraud, and it just dropped throughout the day. There was really no stopping it, and I actually did buy it on the previous day at 52.79, and my stop loss saved me. And this is a reason why you have to have stop losses, because even though the earnings and sales growth is very strong in this stock, it doesn't matter unless the price action matches those fundamentals. And these stop losses will save you from blowing up your account. It did recover towards the end of the week, but this is a huge red flag for me. I won't be touching this for a little bit, at least, until it forms a strong base. So overall, that's kind of the more interesting stocks for my watch list. I also bought ZS on this day right here, this stochastic cross. And other than that, I'm also in Dexcom, which did decently. It's just moving up now, forming the right side of this base. But that's pretty much it from my universe list and watch list. And now before we check out the IBD Big Picture article, I do want to address kind of sentiment, because this is always important as a secondary thing to keep in mind along with the price action of the leading stocks and indexes. And overall, in the survey that I just put out, you can see we're about 44.7% bullish, which is still high-ish, but it's nowhere near the really very optimistic levels we were at a few weeks ago before that pullback. So I think this is constructive. And overall, taking a look at the put-call ratio, you can see that we're back to normal levels. We were really, really bullish down here, which definitely was a negative for me. So with that said, let's go and check out the IBD Big Picture article. And the title is "The Stock Market Fades on Coronavirus Jitters, but Growth Stocks Shine Again." So overall, they talk about how the NASDAQ took that 10,000 level, but you can see that indexes fell sharply around midday as news came out that Apple was closing some stores in some states that are seeing a resurgence in cases. So keep that in mind. You might see some news that affects the markets in the coming weeks. But overall, you can see that NASDAQ eked out a gain of less than 0.1%, backed up from the 10,000 level after it rose 1.1%. The Dow Jones gave back 0.8%. And they also talk about how options expiring really affected the volume and resulted in a distribution day for both the NASDAQ and S&P. And the NASDAQ did see stalling action, so keep that in mind. But overall, you can see that we are still in a confirmed uptrend. We now have 2 distribution days on the NASDAQ, 3 on the S&P 500. You've got some leaders up in volume. Wingstop was a former weekly watch list feature. And you've got some movers down here. A lot of pharmaceutical companies and other kind of medical related companies are doing very well. REGN, Vertex, NBIX did very strongly last week. So keep those names in mind. And they also talk about how some potential true market leaders, as I said, are pretty extended from proper buy points at this time. So keep that in mind as well. So moving on, they do have a chart of Wingstop, which was the stock of the day on Friday. And that's pretty much it from the Big Picture article. So moving on to Wishing Well blog, you can see the current GMI is green. So that's great to see. And the GMI score is a 5 out of 6, which is very strong. So overall, taking into account all these different sources of information from the price action of the indexes and true market leaders, the IBD Big Picture, and the GMI signal, my view is that we are still in a confirmed uptrend. And I'm not at this time looking for new positions because I'm pretty much completely invested, but I'll be managing them, letting them work above those key moving averages. So thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my analysis. And if you did, please go ahead and leave a like down below and subscribe if you're new to the channel. And I'll see you guys in future videos.